Postgame time.
Yep.
Woo!
No shootouts, no overtime. You love it.
All right. Flyers fall to the New York Islanders, final of 3-0. Unable to get anything by Corey Schneider, of all people. He makes 24 saves on 24 shots, and the Islanders pick up a late goal as well. The result, not what you want, but it is preseason, so it doesn't mean much. Flyers with a very, shall I say, non-NHL lineup versus a very NHL lineup, and the New York Islanders, they've shown well, but all said and done, they come away with a loss. Brian, anything that stuck out in particular to you in this game, other than the penalty killers at the end? They battled, but man, they were gassed.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great effort on their part over the course of that final couple of minutes or so. But yeah, they pretty much eventually ran out of gas there. No, I think it was a good overall evening for the club, just in terms of seeing where certain people were. Martin Jones gets another full game in under his belt. He was fairly impressive in several situations there, and was able to fight. Basically, again, an NHL lineup against one that wasn't quite there. But some of the other guys that got into this game is maybe one last look or no, just a evaluation of one thing or another. Isaac Ratcliffe is probably going to be headed to the Phantoms. They get one more look at him. Some of the veterans, Jerry Mayhew, Adam Glendening, these guys that, some of them may stick through this next round of cuts. At some point in the season, they may all be needed at some point. So I like the way that the Flyers were able to mix this group together and put them against a formidable opponent, but also just kind of see how they work in some situations and, kind of plan for what they may have to face over the course of the season.
Yeah, Flyers and Islanders went into the third period tied in shots at 16, but the Flyers get 8 shots in the third, but the Isles get 14 shots in the third. I like the way that Martin Jones really battled in this game, with a depleted lineup. I thought that he played well, all things considered. Let's get to the highlights. First period, it ends up being the game winner, just a minute 33 in. Who knew? When Anthony Beauvillier on the power play opens the scoring for his third. Yeah, 1-0 Islanders when Beauvillier picks up that goal. Bailey and our old friend Eric Gustafsson. Look, Gustafsson is not a great 5-on-5 player and certainly not a good defender, Bri. But he is good on the power play. I will give him that. He's a guy that can facilitate.
That was when the Flyers brought him in. That was one of the first things they saw was his ability to put the puck in there from the point. It's no question that Keith Yandle is a considerable upgrade for the Flyers in that particular position. But, if there's a strength that Gustafsson brings to a lineup, it's that portion of the game that Yandle's also good at, which is just flying in pucks from the point, looking for seams, trying to give the guys in front of the net opportunities to make something happen. So you saw that again tonight on those power plays.
Yeah, and Gustafsson, of course, went to Montreal and then went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. 19:05 of the first period. The Islanders build on their lead. 5-on-5 here. Anders Lee, just too much to kind of handle down low in front of the net, and he picks up his second.
Jones got over and made that pad save on Palmieri. Final minute of play, and the Islanders buzzing here. At the end of the period, loose puck in, Anders Lee scores. He had his back to the net with a man all over him, and Lee got the puck on his deck and bangs it through. Martin Jones for a 2-0 Islanders.
Yeah, just Anders Lee. It's just a bear in that spot. Palmieri and Barzal with the assist. That's how we'd end the first. No scoring in the second. And then, as we alluded to, late in the third period, the Islanders here on the power play. Sustained pressure, tired legs on the ice, several opportunities at the net. And then finally at 19:45, it's Josh Bailey. Had the point in this game earlier. And this time he picks up his third goal of the preseason.
scores, and that'll put the exclamation point on it with 15 seconds to play. The Islanders' second power play goal of the game makes it 3-0.
Yeah, Bailey's third. Eric Gustafson once again picks up a power play assist, and Noah Dobson. And there's your final, 3-0 in favor of the New York Islanders. We won't see them till now November 30th when the Flyers will host the Islanders at the Wells Fargo Center. And that time it will mean something. It'll be for 2 points in the standings. So the Islanders get the win, and now we're down to just one game, Brian. One preseason game left. We've been ticking these off with high anticipation, sarcasm. And we got Friday, and we'll see a very NHL lineup for the Flyers with a lot of cuts taking place. And then we'll be turning our page to the 2021-22 season.
Yeah, one last rehearsal here, if you will, for these guys. Be interesting to see what the Flyers do in the goaltending situation. If they give Carter Hart a second full game like Martin Jones got, I would not be surprised if that was the case, but they could also choose to split in some way. But they are going to probably whittle things down tomorrow to the NHL roster, plus maybe one or two. They may have a couple of final decisions to make, either over the course of the first game or that last game, or between the time between that last game and wherever the roster deadline is, which is probably sometime on Tuesday or not, if not Monday. I'm not 100% certain, but there is a point where they're going to have to set their NHL opening night roster, and it's going to be several nights before their opening night because the league starts so much earlier than they do. But this has been, I think, a good camp overall for the Flyers, just in terms of not only seeing where some of their young players are, but also integrating all the new pieces that Chuck Fletcher brought in. And I think that they're going to benefit from this extra time between Friday and next Friday, and going to be able to work those systems a little bit more and figure out exactly where they need to be when Vancouver comes to town.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is last year, of course, camp was in late December into January. I think the season dropped the puck around January 13th, if I recall, against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And while they had a shortened preseason, they didn't have any preseason games. Right. And this year, the full 6 games, and it's a different opportunity to go out and bang somebody different. Start hitting guys that aren't your teammates, build up a little bit of a callus, get that pace of game, because you can't simulate that in practice, no matter what you do, even in scrimmages.
So if you look back in what we've been through the last 18 months, the Flyers really had 2 sort of training camps, because they had the little camp before they started return to play. And in that particular situation, they did get an actual exhibition game against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the bubble in Toronto before they started the playoffs. So there was that. Then we had the break around this time last year. We were still in the off season. We didn't start until January. And again, there was, an abbreviated training camp, one that honestly, it was kind of strange, because in both situations as a player, you don't have the 4 months notice that you have knowing when training camp is going to start. Everybody was kind of just like waiting to see when it was going to happen. And then, like you said, there were no real preseason games. Flyers did do an inter-squad scrimmage, but again, that's not the same. And then when the Penguins showed up and they did start the season, it was just, you remember how bizarre that game was, just that there was nobody there. And nothing that any of us who've been doing this for years have ever experienced before, how just strange it was to try to play a real game with no fans in the stands. It was just a very, very odd situation. So even that camp is kind of a wash, just in terms of it was so out of the ordinary. It was so out of the ordinary that it actually made us appreciate this year's camp, which is hard to do, to make us appreciate training camp in the long run of things. But it is definitely nice to have had this this actual structured rehearsal time, whatever, that everybody's used to, and the proper amount of time to get ready for a regular season.
Yeah, it's far different than it was, and I didn't even kind of think of that element of it. That was the first time playing with no fans in the stands, and it was
so weird.
Yeah,
I remember just sitting down there and it's like, is this a real game? Like, and we're hearing things that we don't usually hear. I actually remember saying something to an NHL referee after that game is to the effect of, wow, these guys sure like to call the game for you, don't they? Because, every time there was a dispute, you hear the entire bench yelling. We can't normally hear that from the press box when there's, 18,000 people in the stands. It gets drowned out.
Yeah, and the refs are used to that, but it does get drowned out by the crowd, and it's like that. It's that feeling of you go down the shore in the summertime, and the beaches are so alive. Then you happen to be down the shore, and you look at that same beach, and there's nobody on it in the middle of winter. That's January, the feeling February, it was.
Yeah,
yeah,
that is a very good point. I hadn't really thought of that.
Yeah, that's just the feeling you have. It just didn't feel right. We took it because it was better than no hockey, but now that we have fans coming back and. I mean, it was only limited last year for the Flyers, and this year, I mean, we've had more fans this preseason than we did last year at any point during the regular season. So I'm looking forward to opening night for that part of it too, for larger crowds, and I think everybody in the fan base is excited by the moves that were made and what's to come, because it could look. They got to show it on the ice, and we can sit here and say it's on paper, and we've looked at all that, and we've done that ad nauseum. But once we see it on the ice, then we can start to kind of really figure out what you have when you're playing for points in the standings night in and night out.
And I'll say this now, and it won't matter in a week and a half, but if it doesn't go right, but I do believe this group will need a few games to gel as a group, and a few regular season games. I mean, preseason games are definitely helpful, but I don't think that. I don't think you can expect the Flyers to come out and blow the doors off and go 5-0 out of the gate. I just think that they're a team that needs some time in game situations and game routines from day to day to day, game day, off day, game day, off day, game day, couple of days off. Get back in that routine. And one of the things that was telling today, Keith Yandel was talking to the media, and just little things that we as observers may not think about, that he is a new player on a new team has to get down. And it's as minute as when he's working the point at the power play, does Claude Giroux like to take the pass on his lead foot or on his back foot?
Yeah.
In a power play situation. Where does James Van Riemsdyk like the puck to be placed for him to tip it most effectively? Is it waist high? Is it just above the waist? Is it knee high? Little things like that are going to take time, and when you multiply it by 6 skaters, not discounting Martin Jones in any way, but some of these different mixes, it is going to take a little bit of time. But I am, like you said, I'm very excited about the mix and about the overall makeup of the team. And I think it's just going to even get better once Kevin Hayes gets back. I mean, he's going to be around the team, it sounds like, but he's not playing, not on the bench, not yapping. I mean, in during the game, he's in the press box, so he can't be a part of it then.
Probably yapping there.
Yapping. But he can't be a part of it then. But I mean, I am really optimistic that this is going to be a very fun season for this club once it gets going.
Well, when you look at the schedule too, kind of how they start, you look at oppositions, and we judge oppositions that are upcoming this season based on what they were last year to some extent. And you consider another year older for some teams. Maybe when you look at Boston, you look at, what did they acquire in the summertime? What's their lineup look like this year? All of those things, but you don't really know what a team's going to be this season until we kind of see those teams. But, they get Vancouver right out of the gate. Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes just signed, but so they'll have their full complement, and that's a team that could be in for a big rebound. That could be a really good hockey team. Seattle is obviously the great unknown. And we can make this assumption based on an expansion team like we did with Vegas and maybe be wrong, but that you look back at Vegas and you go, well, yeah, that's a good team. Well, we didn't think that at the time. Nobody thought Vegas was going to do anything. Guys like William Karlsson all of a sudden just turns into a 40-goal scorer and that kind of thing. But then you see Boston and Florida there on that first homestand as well. And then you go to Edmonton and you face Vancouver again and then Calgary. So I don't know what to think of the start of the schedule. You just got to kind of take it as it comes. But really, you can't even worry about the opposition. You just got to take care of what you can take care of. And I think the big thing is, and I'm not sure, I'm sure this is a message in camp about starting games off. and not getting behind, because we've seen it for years, and we saw it to an extreme degree last year. And to the point where Alain Vigneault was shortening his bench and playing 2 lines in some of those games. Like, if you guys aren't going to be ready to play, then that's what we're going to do.
Right.
And, so those things that are under your control, they're going to have to control and just be much better at and much more professional as athletes, and be ready to go and dictate the terms and play as best you can.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a weird situation because, again, we've been talking about how the Flyers start late. Well, Vancouver actually has a game against the Oilers on Wednesday the 13th before they come out to Philadelphia, and that has its benefits and it has its drawbacks. The one benefit is going to be that they're going to get a game under their belt before the Flyers do in a regular season situation, which is I think beneficial for them. But on the flip side, then they got to get on a plane and fly all the way to Philadelphia from Edmonton, and at the same time, the Flyers are going to get some video and get a look at Vancouver in a regular season situation before the Canucks get an opportunity to do so. Canucks are basically going to just have probably whatever the Flyers roll out on Friday in Washington as far as a pre-scout on this team. So there's some pros and cons there, I think, between the two situations. But I think you nailed it. That they just need to worry about themselves, and I think it starts with that good first period, which we're optimistic we're going to start seeing now after seeing the last 2 home games over the course of this weekend, regardless of the fact that, and you might say in spite of the fact that the opponents did not dress NHL caliber lineups in those games, the Flyers still came out in the first period and played hard. They played well.
Did not
play down to the opponent. They did not coast out of the gate, which has been a problem here for a long time. So that's the first thing I think that we hope we all see in terms of an optimistic start to this season, is a good first period in that game on October 15th. And as it always is, there's going to be emotions running, not only because it's just a normal opening night scenario with the fire and the guys all being introduced and, who knows what else they got planned for that opening night, but the fact that it's going to be the first time in 2 years, really, that these guys have come out on that opening night situation with a full house and a loud crowd. I mean, there's going to be a lot of adrenaline going for the Flyers in that first period. So, that's going to be an interesting night. But again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. If they have some hiccups over these first couple of games, it's something they're going to iron out. And again, I think it's a good, a good forecast for this team this year.
I'm fascinated by it. If I look at the Eastern Conference, we talked about the Metro in a game earlier in the preseason, and really you're battling teams in the Atlantic Division as well for wild card playoff spots. And there's just a few teams that I'm really intrigued by in the Eastern Conference. I'm intrigued by Ottawa. Are they a team that's ready to be better? Yes. Are they a team that's ready to contend? I don't know about that. But Tampa's a team, back-to-back Cup champions, and we know what they lost over the summer. And defending is very difficult, and they were able to do it. They were perhaps one of the great teams of all time with that roster. And, we know that they were over the cap, and they, whatever they did, what they had to do with LTIR and Kucherov and the whole thing. But, I'm fascinated to see what Tampa's going to be. Toronto comes off bitter disappointment again, this time against an Original Six rival in Montreal, right? To blow a 3-1 lead. How did they rebound? What about Montreal? Without Shea Weber and everything that's gone on there, and no more Philip Deneau. There's so many interesting storylines across the NHL. And then you look in the division, and you look at a team like the Rangers, and are they ready to make that jump? Carolina, they had some loss over the offseason with Nedeljkovic and Dougie Hamilton, and so it's incredibly intriguing what the landscape is going to look like. Again, going kind of to take this full circle, going back to having no clue what these teams are going to be this year.
Right.
Flyers included, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do the standard playoff last year type thing because you look at Carolina last year, 36-12-8, blew the doors off the place in the Central, but can they translate that to playing back in a Metropolitan Division that really is much more difficult than that Central Division that they were in was last year? Yeah. To your point, Tampa, I mean, it is normally excuse me, quite not that you would not want to do it because everybody would love to win back-to-back cups, but a cup run is normally quite a drain on a team, and that's why it's so hard to repeat. Because if you're a cup winner or a cup finalist, you have just played from October to the middle of June. Your off
2
season
more months of
is
hockey.
your off season is 6 weeks shorter than everybody else in the league. So you to come back out and do that again, I mean, it starts to add up in terms of the toll on your body. All these teams in the Pacific, the teams that made up the Canadian division, teams that had a year off of the grueling travel that they're used to. I mean, if you're Anaheim, San Jose, Los Angeles, last year you still had to travel much more than the Flyers did, but going to St. Louis and Minnesota and all that, but they didn't have to come east to play 28 of their games last year. They got a year off the travel. How is it going to be easy for those teams to hop back in the saddle and deal with all those air miles again? There's just so many things that we've never seen before coming out of last season into this season that are going to make for some pretty interesting storylines as we get going here through the first few weeks.
Yeah, look, being one of those teams in the Western Conference, the travel is no bargain. I
remember being in Chicago a couple of years ago, and I was somewhat whining about the travel situation we were in to the Chicago TV guys, and they just laughed at me.
Yeah, it's way worse.
That is nothing.
I mean, look at the teams that you have real close by here. I mean, in this Northeast corridor, from Washington, the Flyers, the Devils, the Penguins, Islanders, Rangers, right up to Boston. It's not difficult.
Am I remembering correctly that the Flyers didn't have to get on a plane after they returned from Lake Tahoe last year?
I think that is correct.
It was something like that. Everything else was a train or a bus.
There was a time zone, one of those too, where they weren't going to change time zones, but like 2 times last year.
Yeah, I mean, just in the regular season, there were no time zone changes. The only reason they had to leave the time zone was for that game.
Yeah, for the Tahoe game.
Yeah, I mean, everything else was right in, and then they were the only division that I think had that luxury. I think in the Central, they had to hop over to, Nashville, Dallas, and Chicago were Central time, so they had to do that. But the guys in the what is it, the Mass Mutual East division,
yep.
No time zone changes whatsoever, and even the Canada teams, they had to fly cross country. They didn't have to do customs or anything, which was nice. But I wonder if these guys remember how to go through customs. I'm assuming they probably do.
Yeah,
probably more seasoned travelers than I am.
Well, you got to wonder too this year with the going over the border because of the COVID situation as well. Proof of vaccination, it could just take even longer. So we'll see how that all plays out. Let's take a time out here on the Postgame Show. That's Brian Smith. I'm Jason Myrtetus. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with more on the Postgame Show right after this. You're listening to Philadelphia Flyers Hockey on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. All right. What's up, Joey B?
Pat Foley and Eddie Olczyk were just like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah,
I don't know what I was complaining about. We had to go from we had a city hop or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard from some of those guys, and they're just like, "It's absolutely Dallas is brutal."
Yeah,
everywhere Chicago, is far. Yeah. What up, Mert? What up, Joey B?
I think Dallas, Chicago, and St. Louis probably have it the worst, just being the eastmost teams in that time zone.
Yeah. Go like 7 more?
Yeah, that's fine. I have no idea when the game ended. I forgot to check.
24.
Can't see it on this game sheet.
For
those of you who probably don't relate to it as well, this game was not in an NHL building. It was in an American Hockey League building, so we don't get any of our NHL infrastructure. We don't get any of our NHL score sheets, any of the stuff that we're spoiled by. So it's a little bit of more of a lift for us tonight than we're used to.
It looked pretty good on the Islanders stream, though.
It did, yeah. I was impressed by the stream. I just wish I knew it was happening.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be some guy on a cell phone like that scrimmage earlier in the year. But no, it was a good job. It kind of looked legit.
It did.
Friday against the Caps. Did you watch the Toronto Maple Leafs thing yet? All or Nothing?
No,
Got a gnat
no.
flying around.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. I'm going to watch it.
Okay.
We all know how that movie ends. It's like Titanic.
Friday's game will be on TV. I believe NBC Philly is picking up the feed from NBC Washington.
Oh, cool.
So folks will be able to actually watch that on a television. But I do think the Islanders did a good job tonight with that stream.
Yeah, they must have had legit camera operators and everything.
This Webster Bank Arena was the location of the infamous story where Bruce Boudreau, when he was coaching the Hershey Bears, forgot his pants. And their radio guy, John Walton, who's now in Washington, had to give him his pants, which did not fit Bruce.
That's classic.
Bruce had to stand on the bench, and he couldn't move because he didn't want to rip the pants.
Oh, man. Yeah, Bruce not quite as fit as he was in his playing days.
Cat, sorry.
There's the cat making it.
Been trying to keep him off the desk for the last hour.
Yeah, good luck with that. Oh, that's funny. Oh, Gabby. All right. All right, we're back live. Post-game show. It's Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. Flyers will be back in action coming up on Friday. The countdown continues. Let me give you the official countdown there, Schmitty, because I got the countdown app to know exactly at any given second. I got to find it on my phone first.
I don't need that stress in my life. I'll just get my updates from you.
Yeah. Well, I'm obsessed with the countdown. So here's what we are as we sit here at this exact time on 9:54. It's 9 days, 21 hours, 5 minutes, and 20 seconds until puck drop.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if puck drop is at 7:05, but for that game, it might be a little delayed because of introductions and everything. But basically, you get the gist of it. We're down to we're down to Ivan Provorov, single digits until the regular season starts, which can't come soon enough. The 82 game schedule. A lot of people say in sports, they say every league should retract their schedule by 25%. So the NHL should go to about 60 games, NBA, the same thing. Baseball should be about 120 games. The football, you kind of leave as is because there's probably not enough, right? But I like the full 82. I don't know if it's just I'm a narcissist but I like the ebbs and flows of a full 82 game season, because I think it does mean more to get into the playoffs when you play 82 than it would 60.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I don't think that I don't know how to put it, but now that this league has got the parity that it does, it is so hard to make the playoffs. And everybody says, well, you should be able to get in playoffs. Half the teams get in. Well, when the NHL was a 26 team league, let's just say that, and the top 16 got in the playoffs. Well, that was an era where there were, usually in any given season, maybe 7 or 8 teams that were just awful. You don't get that these days. Nowadays, you get about 2 or 3 teams that are probably a step above everybody else. And then every year you get 1 or 2 teams that are dogs. So that leaves 25 teams that we're at 32 now. So 27 teams that are really right there with each other. I mean, they're this league is kind of known for that anybody can beat any other team on any given night. You don't get that in the NBA. You do get it in baseball, but again, you have 162 games there to deal with slumps and things like that. So the 82 game season to me in the National Hockey League is probably right about where it needs to be. I don't think it definitely doesn't need to be any more. But the fact that you can, go all that way, and still every year at the end of the regular season, there are races to get in the playoffs. Looks like we're seeing right now in the American League in baseball, where you had 4 teams like within a game of each other. That happens in just about every division in the NHL at the end of the season, either teams trying to get in or jockeying for position. And then the playoffs roll around, and you can be the Tampa Bay Lightning and win the President's Trophy, and then get swept out by the 16th seed in the in the league, just like that. That also, you don't see that very much. And a lot of other sports. So, excuse me, in terms of the length, I'm good with it. The NHL's always going to have issues at the very start of the season, with everybody's focus on, football and stuff like that. But, I think that it's certainly a situation where you don't want to take anything away from it. And, just again, with the Olympic break in there this year, it is a little more compressed, but, it gives the guys the right amount of time to recover. But, at the same time, you ever watch one of these teams after they got 5 days off? It's like they forgot how to play hockey sometimes. It is definitely a very, a very routine-oriented sport where you've got to have regular action to stay sharp. So, I think that it's a good structure for them overall.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because, an 8 seed, you're right, can beat a 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And in the NBA, I think it's only happened twice, and the last time it was actually the Sixers that did it. When they beat Chicago under Doug Collins, but they were also without Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, and so it was a depleted team. But in the NHL, I mean, go back to 2010 when the Flyers go to the Cup, they're the 7 seed. They get to the conference final, they have home ice advantage because they're taking on Montreal, who's the 8 seed. So, I mean, those things can happen in the NHL. But again, you have to have a roster that's also not is good enough to get you in the playoffs, but also is built for the playoffs, which is a slightly different. It's a different animal. You look at Toronto; they're a team that's been great in the regular season. They can beat teams 6-3, but you get into the playoffs, and it's a different game. And every inch of the ice is contested, and goaltending is huge. And then they don't have a team that's been able to handle that and get past the first round.
Right.
So
right. And I think you've seen that start to seep over into the international game as well, because when they're building an Olympic team this year for Canada and for the USA, they've become less of an all-star team and more of a team built to put people in specific roles. Like, you look at, I don't have a roster in front of me, but you'll look at some guy on team makes Team USA. I think actually a good example might be back in 2010, was it? When Jeff Carter did not make Team Canada, but it wasn't because he wasn't one of the best, 20 best Canadian players or whatever. It was he wasn't the choice of Team Canada for his role. You're not going to take Jeff Carter and put him in a fourth line situation at that point in his career. So, you look at some guys like, oh, why'd that guy make the team? And this guy that's got 80 points this year didn't make it. Well, that's why they're looking for the best player for specific roles. And when you're building a playoff team, you have to do that. Now, that's the next step for Chuck Fletcher, is to watch how this team he's built, how it develops over the course of these next 4 months. And then once we get to the trade deadline,
figure out
what's going on with the team and what do they need to plug in to put them over the top. And the successful teams at the end of the day are the teams that build that team over the course of the season to make them the hard team to beat in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's put a wrap on the postgame show. We'll be back Friday. Flyers final preseason game coming up against the Washington Capitals. That'll be the final dress rehearsal before we get ready for the regular season. So we'll join you Friday, Brian Smith and I. And let's get out of here thanking a few people. Let's start with Pat Egan, our in-studio engineer. Who was on highlights, Pat?
Apology. I made his life hard tonight.
Dylan McKinnon on highlights. For Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, Brian Smith, I'm Jason Myrtetus. You've been listening to Philadelphia Flyers Hockey on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Good night, everybody. See you, Pat. All right, everybody on the stream, thank you. I'm going to take Bill Meltzer now for Flyers Daily.
All right.
All right, I'll talk to you, Schmitty.
I'll see you, folks. Thanks.